Good morning, Bay Ridge. Welcome to another edition of After Hours. This week, I thought we would take a step back, a little different from the teaching, and kind of ask what didn't happen in our meeting on Sunday and why it did not. And that is in reference to the holiday we just celebrated this weekend, Memorial Day. Many of you probably did some things for Memorial Day. Linda and I certainly did. We had Steph and Seamus's girls, and we went to a Memorial Day parade yesterday in downtown Annapolis, and we had a great time. And I really enjoy the celebration of Memorial Day. Linda picked at me a little bit because when the Navy band went by and played the Marine Corps hymn, I do what I always do when the Marines hymn is played, which is I snap to attention, even though I was actually holding Felicity at the time. And Linda laughs at me, but it's an old habit and something that I'm proud to have been able to serve as a Marine. And I reference that by a proper respect for the Marine Corps hymn every time it's played. I was really moved yesterday as we watched a number of Vietnam veterans came by early in the parade, and that always tugs at me. I'm really grateful for them and their services. I am for every veteran. I thank the Korean veteran for his service. And it's good and right for Christians to love our country, to express patriotism, to involve ourselves in ways of remembering those who have sacrificed and served and paid that we might have freedom. It is a good thing for Christians to do that. And in particular, I think for American Christians, we have a country that has done a lot of things right, has served the cause of liberty and freedom in many, many ways. There are obviously many things we've done wrong as well, but we're told to honor our father and mother, and the principle that goes beyond that is to remember those who've gone before, and it's appropriate for us to do that. So then that brings up the question, then why didn't we do a big patriotic celebration on Sunday? Or why don't we do that on July the 4th? And the reason we don't is it's a very different thing when the church gathers. When I'm out there as a private citizen, a Christian citizen, it's appropriate for me to respond with patriotism. But when we gather as the church, we're not just individuals gathering together, nor are we actually an American church that is gathering together. Rather, we are an outpost of the kingdom of God. We gather to worship God, and we gather as those who He has brought from every nation. We don't gather just specifically as Americans. We are God and God's people and the kingdom of God, and that is how and why we gather. We gather as those of every nation who are united to Christ. It's a joy when we have people actually from different nationalities and backgrounds here among us. That's kind of a foretaste of our time in heaven when every group is going to be gathered around. And we gather not to remember those who have gone before us and sacrificed and served our freedom and our liberty, but rather we gather to remember the sacrifice of Christ, who died to save us from sin and to give us freedom from sin. And that's a very, very different thing. And so because our first allegiance is to Christ and it is to His kingdom, we don't want to mix or confuse the two kingdoms. When we gather on Sunday, we are gathered as the kingdom of God. We're not here as the kingdom of man. We are not here to serve and think and work through as the kingdom of man and to honor the kingdom of man. We are here rather as God's kingdom. We can pray for our nation. We can be grateful for it. We can offer thanks to God for it, but we don't engage in patriotic celebrations. We don't turn this into an American service because it is in reality a service of the kingdom of God. And what's right in our private life, which is patriotic celebration, is wrong when we gather and worship. And this is a controversial thing because many Christians love to do this. I remember seeing a famous pastor a number of years ago that was on the stage with a massive American flag behind him, and he was celebrating the 4th of July. But that's not what we do when we gather. And if we do confuse that, all we really end up doing is undermining the uniqueness of the work of Christ, the uniqueness of the kingdom of God, and we undermine the fact that our primary allegiance is to God and His kingdom. As grateful as we are for America, and I am very grateful, I'm grateful that I was born in this country and that I had a chance to serve this country in the military, my primary allegiance is to Christ and His kingdom. And I don't want to do anything in gathered worship that would undermine that would tend to play that down or confuse the two kingdoms. And so that's why we don't ever do any of that at Bay Ridge. We don't celebrate those national holidays and do things that are specifically American, because we are gathered as the kingdom of God who's come together. We happen to be here in Annapolis, but it would not matter if it was in Annapolis or if it was in Azerbaijan. We gather as God's people for God's kingdom to serve and labor and work with him. So I hope that helps you understand a little bit of difference between what we do as private citizens and what we do as the church gathered, and how we are living in God's two kingdoms. I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to seeing everybody this Sunday. Remember, this Sunday we will celebrate after the meeting by going together and having a church picnic so we can just spend an afternoon together. Hope you have a great week. God bless.